We're back with Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah. He's the chairman of the House Oversight Government Reform Committee. You just studied the U.S. Secret Service recently, putting out a very lengthy report. When you hear about this latest incident, Congressman, what's your reaction?
These things can't keep happening. They have a deep-seated cultural problem, and one of the things that we unearthed in this bipartisan report that we did with Elijah Cummings is the deep lack of training. The average person who works for the Secret Service goes through training equivalent to about 25 minutes per year. And so when you have somebody who's outside normal protocol, isn't adhering to the normal practices of any law enforcement agency, I want to go back and see, is it just one problematic person, or was this something that is systemic throughout the organization? But you can't do that. You can't leave your service revolver in a car that evidently all it needed to do was be unzipped. It was just a plastic covering to get at this weapon, and that's just not right.
The gun, the badge, the radio, the handcuffs, the flash drive, all stolen. Obviously, these individuals are entrusted to protect the president's life, the first family. How does something like this potentially even happen?
I don't know, but the problem is it keeps happening, and that's the look. When you have an agency as large as Homeland Security, somebody's going to do something stupid somewhere. But the Secret Service, time and time again, continues to have a blunder in a no-fail mission, and that's again why we continue to highlight that. Not just embarrass it, because most of the people working there are good, patriotic, dutiful people, but the problem is they have this culture that allows these types of things to happen, and I'll be fascinated to see what kind of punishment this person gets.
As you heard in Joe John's report, and as you well know better than anyone, the agency certainly has been hit by a string of controversies and incidents in the past year or two. Do you have confidence in the current director?
You know, 3 times in a row, we have had directors that have provided false or misleading testimony to Congress. The cultural problems have not improved. So I think we need to elevate that. I think we need to look at the Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, because we have the same problems happening with director after director. I think the question really needs to go to the Secretary and the President himself.
Let's move on and talk about some other issues right now, really disturbing issues. In a hearing last week, as you know, it was revealed that the government has no idea how many of the more than 9,000 people whose visas to the United States were revoked for possible ties to terrorism actually still remain in the United States right now. You heard that. Does this scare you?
No, it scares the living daylights out of me. State Department in their written testimony said they had revoked since 9/11 122,000 visas. But of those that were revoked, 9,500 were because of ties to terrorism. And I asked them, where are these people? And it was crickets. They had no idea. And somebody at State Department knew that there was a tie to terrorism, revoked the visa, and they're still here, potentially. They got to answer this question. I don't think they have a clue.
We're also learning more about Tashfeen Malik, the wife of the San Bernardino killer, Saeed Rizwan Farouk. The couple, as you know, met online. They had legal requirements to get her a visa, a fiancé visa to the United States. We're now looking at that application. They've just released it. There were no red flags in her case at all. She passed accordingly, apparently with flying colors, but both of them were radicalized long before the visa was issued. How can this be?
Well, as the House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte pointed out, they didn't necessarily pass with flying colors. You can't just go to farmersonly.com and talk online and then suddenly expect to get a visa to come to the United States of America. I'm not saying they went to that particular website, but you can't just chat online and then come here. There is a requirement where you meet in person, and there was no evidence in that file that says that they actually met in person. In fact, the person who was at Homeland Security or at State that was supposed to be looking at this file requested a translation, never got it, but the visa was still approved. And so it begs the question, how does this visa get approved, and where is the documentation that these people actually met in person in order to get this K-1 visa?
Well, there's a letter in the documentation that they released today from Saeed Rizwan Farouk, the husband, saying he was in Saudi Arabia and Mecca performing the Hajj exactly the same time she was. My fiancé and her family drove from Riyadh to Mecca so that we could meet, and it is on this day that we got engaged. That's what he claims in this affidavit that he provided the State Department.
One of the people entered into Saudi Arabia starting in June, I believe it was June 4th, on a 60-day visa. Are you telling me that he overstayed, that one of those people overstayed their visa? Because the other one didn't enter into Saudi Arabia until October. And so I think, as pointed out by the Judiciary Committee, which I happen to serve, I think there's a legitimate question. Where is the proof that they actually met in person and fell in love enough so that our government felt compelled to allow them to come in and into the United States of America? They did not follow that protocol. It certainly is a big question mark that we want some answers for.
I'm sure you do, but so what's the most important thing they need to do right now to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Well, you have Ben Rhodes out there going on all the Sunday morning talk shows talking about how well these people are vetted, the deep investigations, and they're checking all the files, not just for the refugees, but how about all the other visas that are here? How about the 50-plus thousand people that claim asylum in this country? You know, most of these interviews, Wolf, happen on the telephone. They don't even necessarily happen in person. In Lebanon, if you're trying to get this done, we have a team that comes in and does some quick interviews. I think we're deeply concerned that if you're going to bring in people to the United States, they have to be vetted. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask. I really don't.
Ben Rhodes is the President's Deputy National Security Advisor. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.